Hello. Well, this is my new toy which was delivered this morning, which is Friday the 9th of July 2021. It is a Harrison M300 lathe with a 13-inch swing and 25 inches between centres. It weighs 584 kilograms and it has a 3-phase motor. I must confess at once that I don't actually have 3-phase supply, so I can't drive it in this video for you. I went to see it before I bought it and it was able to drive it there. The Spindle Gearbox goes from 40 RPM to 2500 RPM, and this is all working. And I was able to test this under power before I bought it. So I know that those are all working okay. The threading and feed gearbox is versatile and will do all these imperial values and metric values. The fact that it says 6mm down here proves that the lead screw is a metric lead screw. And if we look at the thread dial on the right of the saddle, we see that it also says millimeters there, which also proves that it's a metric lead screw, which is what I wanted. Most of these M300s actually have an imperial lead screw. So you can cut imperial or metric threads on this lathe, but if you want to use the thread dial, you've got to cut metric pitches. So before I bought it, I was able to check the feeds. It can either drive the carriage left or right, or the cross slide in or out, and the direction is controlled by this reversing knob here. And these 3 knobs and this 8-position knob control the feed speeds. And this one is working fine, this one is working fine, but this one will not move at all, and it won't move even if you drive the thing round. And neither will this. This is stuck in number 1 and it should be capable of going to 8 different positions. So the feed speeds are somewhat constrained at the moment, and furthermore, because I cannot put this thing to Y or W, I can't engage the lead screw. So I wasn't able to test the threading side of things. If the lead screw was working, you obviously engage the thread, the half nuts with this lever. And this button here is for squirting oil onto the ways underneath, inside the saddle. The people I bought this lathe from is a company that designs and makes furniture, and they told me that they bought this lathe with some other stuff that they wanted a few years ago, but they never actually used this lathe. They were told that it was in full working order when they bought it, and they had advertised it on eBay as being in full working order. So when we encountered these problems on it with these stuck knobs, I decided to make them an offer, which they accepted. So I'm happy that I got this for a reasonable price, and I'm just gambling on the fact that I shall be able to fix these stuck knobs without too much trouble. I just hope that when we open the gearbox we don't discover an enormous catastrophe inside. So this engages the feed, this one switches it between feeding the carriage or the cross slide, depending on whether it's out or in. That engages the half nut. This goes reverse or forward to turn the spindle on, and that is the oil pump. The tailstock works fine, and we'll come out a lot further than that, and we'll lock like that, and we'll go backwards and forwards as one might expect. I don't think that this locking is quite adjusted correctly. Whether it's in line with the headstock is another question, but we can adjust that here. It also came with this Collet chuck device, and I'm buggered if I can work out exactly how this works. But basically, this dog clutch here is attached to the spindle. This is a drawbar that goes through to the chuck side. Obviously you don't have a chuck on it, and it's threaded at the end. And this is some kind of clutch which, when you push this handle to the right, couples the two together. Why it is advantageous to couple the spindle to the drawbar in this way, I have yet to work out. But I can take this off like this. You can see the thread there, which should engage with any collet that you put in. And then I can put this piece of bent pipe that they kindly supplied in here and knock out the thing from the other end, which fits in the taper. It was difficult to knock it out the first time, but it's easy now because I've put a bit of oil on it. So you put your 5C collet in there, engage it with that thread, and what the lever and the dog clutch is for, I don't know. It has a foot brake that's supposed to be fitted in here, which the previous owners removed temporarily so that they could move this thing with a pallet jack. So, round the back we have the main motor with a belt drive in there, I think, going up to the headstock. I've got to take this bits off to see exactly how it works. There's a transformer here which I think is only for this light. It may possibly power the DRO as well, but the power for the DRO seems to be coming from down there, and I haven't opened the electric box. There's a coolant pump here and a sump. This sticking out bit is a DRO, which makes the thing wider, but it doesn't matter. That's more or less all there is around the back. Normally it has a splash back thing that sticks out quite a long way, but it's just behind me at the moment. So in terms of overall width, not counting the splashback and not counting this sensor which sticks out for the cross-slide DRO, which obviously you could take off, then the swarf tray is 613mm wide, and then if you take account of these handles, they all stay in the same position, don't they? Yes. So this one is the top slide handle is sticking out more than the other one, so it would come to less than 790 millimeters. And if you just took these handles off, you get it back to 700 millimeters. That's just for the benefit of idiots like me who have very narrow doors to their workshop. Of course, I'm not counting this collet thing, which you wouldn't have if you had any sense. The cross slide dial is 5 millimeters per rev, but it only moves the cross slide 2.5 millimeters. So in other words, this is reading the amount that you take off the diameter. It has a quick change tool post of this kind and a whole load of holders for it, tool holders for it, and various other things which may or may not be useful, some of which don't seem to fit anywhere. It has an old Digipack 5 DRO. I'm not sure whether that's working yet. I didn't pay much attention to that because I just thought, well, if this DRO isn't working, I can easily fit another one for a few £100. It came with a nice Pratt Bernard 4-jaw chuck with reversible jaws, a 3-jaw chuck of unknown ilk with internal and external jaws, a fixed steady rest, some kind of faceplate which has never been used, and I don't actually see how it fits on the lathe. It may be for something else for all I know, and a 58 tooth change gear. I don't know what change gears there are actually in the lathe at the moment because I can't open the back yet. At the moment I can't power this up because it requires 3-phase. Don't say why don't you get a VFD, because I prefer 3-phase, and I've set in hand having 3-phase installed to my property, but it'll take a few weeks to get it done. So in the meantime I'm going to clean the lathe up and look at its internals. So I wasn't actually able to do any turning on this lathe before I bought it, but I did look at the ways, obviously, and I thought that they looked okay. Either way, this is a gap bed lathe in that this part of it can come out, but I don't think it ever has been out. It's extraordinarily smooth there. That you can take it out to just allow an even bigger thing to be turned. So the saddle rides on this V-way and this flat way, and the tailstock rides on this V-way and this flat way. So in terms of wear, we're mainly concerned with this and this. So I had looked at this way, and although I can see some pitting here, it didn't look overall to me as if it was badly worn. So, not being able to take any test cuts, one thing I can do is to put a dial test indicator on the cross slide and measure where this V-way is. In theory it shouldn't move at all as we traverse towards the headstock. But what actually happens is it's going down a bit, down by about 0.05 millimeters as we get to this area here. Then it goes back up to naught, and then it starts going positive, going up and up and up and up and up to 25, 24. Given that the chuck takes up this space here, you probably wouldn't come as far over as here normally. So that's plus 0.3 millimeters, which is really a lot, really a lot. So I'm disappointed in that, and I'm wondering if I've made a big mistake in buying this. Perhaps I should have regarded the fact that it has this Collet, automatic Collet gizmo on here as a warning sign, because nobody would buy one of those and install them unless they were sat there doing repetitive operations with collets. So maybe that's maybe I should have steered clear of this particular lathe. Anyway, I get exactly the same result if I put the dial test indicator on the flat way at the back. I should say that I have not leveled this lathe at all, but that doesn't matter in my opinion for the purpose of this test, because we're not measuring twist, we're just measuring, kind of using the saddle as if it were a repeater meter to measure dips in the way. Whether that those dial test measurements will actually translate into movement of the tool post exactly, I don't know, and I can't tell until I can actually make some cuts on this. So the reason I got this particular one is twofold. Firstly, because it's metric, a metric lead screw, and the vast majority of M300s are imperial. And often people on eBay, they don't even bother to tell you whether it's imperial or metric, and they carefully photograph it without showing you the telltale bits, in the hope that you'll buy it thinking it's one thing rather than the other. And secondly, because it was near Worthing on the coast, which is just a 90-minute drive for me, and most of these lathes either in the Midlands. I even found one in Scotland that was metric, but I couldn't be bothered to go up there to have a look at it. So this one was easy to find and easy to visit. Ultimately, I want to get this lathe through that door at the back into my workshop, and it is narrow enough to do that. If I take this DRO bit sticking out on the back off. As I've got no power at the moment for a few weeks, I thought I would use the intervening time just to take the whole thing to pieces, try and fix these stuck knobs, change the oil, see the condition of everything inside, maybe even paint a bit of it. I'm not sure about that. So that's my plan over the coming weeks. What else? Oh yes, and I was thinking that perhaps whilst I have it apart, I can take it bit by bit through that door rather than having to manoeuvre the whole thing, which weighs 600 kilograms or 584 kilograms. So whether that will turn out to be less work than actually manoeuvring the whole thing as it is, I don't know. But I need to take it apart to see what the condition is and what needs fixing, etc. And to get it cleaned up a bit. So those are my plans for the future on this, and I just hope that it cuts a little bit better than is suggested by that dial test indicator. So anyway, thanks very much for watching.